confession comes too easily. Hey, night listener. Tonight, we enter the shadows. The streetlights are humming, but only when you stop walking. Rain glides down your windshield like fingerprints washing away. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks like it's warning no one in particular, and the footsteps behind you, they echo a little too long after you've stopped. You already know what kind of story this is. The kind that doesn't knock, it slips inside your head while you're not looking. If this story found you, maybe it's because you've been followed too. So, before we vanish into this mystery, like the video and subscribe only if you can handle the truth buried beneath the lies. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? And when it comes down to it, are you drawn more to the truth, the thrill, or the justice? Now, lock your doors, take a deep breath, and follow me into the dark. You've solved a lot of cases, closed files like doors you never planned to walk through again. But this one, it closes itself. And that's the first sign something's wrong. The confession comes in at 3:46 a.m. Too clean, too rehearsed. She sits straight backed in the chair across from you, hands folded, voice steady, eyes locked onto yours like she's trying to memorize them. Or maybe trying to make you forget. Yes, she says, I did it. 3 words, no tears, no questions, just certainty. You should feel relief. Instead, you feel the press of something colder than truth, something you've felt before, but never this soon. Doubt. You knew, but pretended you didn't. The file says her name is Adrian Callow, mid-30s, preschool teacher, married once, no kids. The victim, Marcus Finch, local developer, found stabbed in his townhouse kitchen. No sign of forced entry, no defensive wounds, motive still hazy. But she's already admitted it, so the department doesn't care. It's open and shut, and that's what terrifies you, because no one confesses without a story behind it. And Adriane's story, it fits too well, down to the precise time of death, 17 p.m. He said something he shouldn't have. She explains, I grabbed the knife. I didn't think. It was just reflex, like blinking or hiding something. She signs the confession. No lawyer, no hesitation. And then she looks up and says the line that curls your gut. You don't need the motive, do you? It's not a challenge. It's permission. That's when you know she didn't come here to be caught. She came here to end the story before it really began. And you let her outside the station. The rain starts again. You light a cigarette. You told your doctor you quit. The tip glows like the red dot of a recording camera, one you forgot to turn off. You listen to the confession again. The words match, but the tone, there's a hitch right before reflex, a pause, almost like she's remembering something she never said out loud. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. You head back inside, to the evidence room. The file's still thin, no photos yet, no real timeline, no witnesses, no reason, just a knife, a timestamp, and a signature in blue ink. Your signature. You signed off. Why did you sign off? The confession was too neat. The truth doesn't usually balance like that. It lurches, stumbles, doubles back, and the way she looked at you, like she knew you needed her to say it, like she was doing you a favor. You opened the evidence box, and there it is. A brass key, unlabeled, no corresponding lock. You almost missed it the first time. You pick it up. It's cold, colder than metal should be. And in that second you know, Adrienne didn't confess to cover up her guilt. She confessed to hide someone else's motive. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You slide the key into your coat pocket. You don't log it. Not yet. Because this case isn't over. It's just changing writers. And for some reason, you were chosen to hold the pen. The key wasn't in the evidence. You hold the brass key like it might whisper something to you. It's small, old, almost ornamental. No engravings, no tag, just a faint groove worn smooth from time. It wasn't listed on the original report, not by forensics, not by patrol, which means either it was planted or someone didn't want it catalogued. And you, well, you didn't log it either. You knew, but pretended you didn't. The thing about keys, they don't hide. They wait. You sit in your car outside the precinct long after your shift ends, flipping the key between your fingers like a coin. It lands cold in your palm every time. You drive not home, not yet, to the victim's apartment. The crime scene's been cleared. Tape still clings to the doorframe like brittle caution. The landlord gave permission to enter after you dropped your badge number. One look at your face, and he didn't ask questions. Inside, the silence is too precise, like someone arranged it. Kitchen light's been replaced. No more blood. No more yellow markers. But the clock on the wall still reads 9:17. Cracked. Frozen. Like time itself stopped with the blade. You test the key in every lock you can find. Kitchen drawers, desk cabinet, closet boxes, nothing. But you don't give up, because you've seen this pattern before. A clue too early in the chain. A symbol dropped before it can make sense. In the bedroom, something feels off. The room's sterile. Bed made military tight. Curtains freshly laundered. But on the far wall, one frame is slightly crooked. Barely, like someone adjusted it in a hurry. You approach. Behind it, a small notch in the wall, an embedded keyhole. You blink, then insert the brass key. It fits, turns, clicks. The wall opens like a whisper, revealing a narrow cavity with one thing inside: a cassette tape. No label, no dust, just waiting. You don't play it. Not yet. Because now, the paranoia starts to kick in. Why hide a cassette in a wall? Why guard it with a key that never made it into evidence? And why did Adrian confess the moment she entered the station? As if she knew you wouldn't dig deeper. You slide the tape into your coat pocket beside the key. Two ghosts. One locked, one waiting. It was never about the truth. It was about control. On your way out, you notice something you missed on the first pass. A glove. Just one. Tucked half under the victim's desk. Left-handed. Black leather. Faint ink stain on the thumb. You kneel to pick it up and stop. There's something beneath it. A torn receipt. Hardware store. $14.99 for voice recording cassette blank. Blank X3. Dated 2 days before the murder. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. You bag the glove. Log the receipt. But the key and the tape, those stay with you. Because the moment you submit them, the case really will close. And if you've learned anything, it's that the moment you shut a case too soon, the truth finds another door to break through. Back in the car, you finally slide the tape into the dash-mounted recorder you haven't used in years. It crackles, then a voice, faint, muffled. Don't know if this changes anything, but if you're hearing this, I wasn't the first one he hurt, and I wasn't supposed to be the last. Click. End of side A. You stare at the cassette. It's Adrian's voice, quieter, shaking, but it's her. And now you know she didn't confess to a murder. She confessed to protecting someone. But who and why choose you to carry that burden? You rewind the tape, hand trembling slightly, and press play again. He kept everything. Photos, letters, even recordings. Not for memories, for leverage. There's one more. It's the one he said would ruin me. But I don't care anymore. If you find it, you'll know why he had to die. Click. Silence. No static. Just the thudding beat of your pulse catching up. You don't go back to the station that night. Instead, you sit under a broken streetlight near the river, cassette in your coat, key in your palm, and you wonder, what if you've been the suspect all along? She knew the victim too well. The next morning, the light hits your window like an interrogation lamp. You blink against it, not ready to face the day because the night didn't end. It only paused. You dress without turning on the lights. Something about fluorescent bulbs feels too exposed now. You slide the cassette back into your coat, the key tucked behind your wallet like a secret you haven't admitted to yourself. You don't shave. You don't smile. You barely speak. You just drive straight to Adrian Callow's address. She's already confessed, so no warrant needed. Just a knock, a badge, and the promise that you're not here for the law. You're here for something deeper. The apartment is as staged as the crime scene. Too clean, too quiet. But unlike Marcus's condo, this place breathes. Photos line the mantel. Adrian in a yellow sundress. Adrian holding a cat. Adrian beside. Marcus, you pause. It's an older photo. 10 years ago. Maybe more. He looks younger. She looks the same. His hand on her shoulder. Too familiar. Too proprietary. You knew, but pretended you didn't. She enters the room behind you like she's been waiting. Not startled, not hostile, just prepared. Detective, she says, as if it's still your title. You left before I could tell you everything. You don't ask why she's not in holding. You already know. Some paperwork delay, some technicality. Someone upstairs bought the easy ending. But you didn't come for the ending. You came for the part that didn't make sense. You point to the photo. How long? Her lips part. Then seal. Then she says it. 16 months. But I knew him before that. Years ago. We weren't close. Not the way he wanted. There's a pause. You don't fill it. She continues. He had a way of getting what he wanted. Until someone told him, no, that someone was you. It didn't matter who it was. Just that someone finally did. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. You ask about the cassette. You don't show it. Just mention the voice, the words. She flinches, but not in fear, in memory. I left it for someone. I didn't know if it would be you. Why me? Because you've been there, haven't you? In that space where silence feels safer than justice. She's not asking. She's naming something you buried. And suddenly, the case doesn't feel procedural anymore. It feels personal. You pull the glove from your coat pocket. Hold it out. Recognize this. She nods, slowly. It was his, but he never wore both. Said one hand was for touching, the other for holding things down. You don't write that down. You can't. It's not evidence. It's poison. You spot another photo. Adrian and a child. A girl. Blonde. Smiling crookedly, like a kid learning to fake it early. Yours, mine. You blink. There's no record of a child. I made sure of that. Why? Because I didn't want her name next to his in any database. The implication slams into you like a headline. This wasn't just a murder. It was a warning. You pace the apartment, heart hammering in rhythms that don't match your steps. There's something else here. Something you can feel pressing against the edges of the moment, like a room with too many walls. Then, on her bookshelf, tucked between cookbooks and dog-eared poetry, you find it, a box labeled Misk. Inside 3 cassette tapes, 2 blank, one marked in neat, Sharpie script, his final leverage. You hold it like a trigger and ask, "Can I listen?" She hesitates, then nods, but only if she can leave the room. You don't question it, because you wouldn't want to be present for this either. You slide the tape in, play, and listen. It's Marcus's voice, confident, cold. "If anything happens to me," you check the box under her bed. That's where the files are. She'll never admit it, but she wanted it, all of it, even when she cried. She thinks she can erase me. Cute. No one erases Marcus Finch. Click. You eject the tape. Stare at it. You feel sick, but you also feel certain. This wasn't about passion. It was about control. About making sure someone never spoke again. And Adrian. She didn't kill to silence him. She confessed to silence what he had left behind. You walk back into the living room, holding the cassette in your coat pocket like a secret weapon. "Tell me what was under the bed." She doesn't even pretend not to know. A file, photos, copies of emails. Of her, your daughter. She's not his, but he didn't care. The room spins. And now you know why she confessed. Not because she did it, because she didn't want you to open the file, because she knew you would understand, because someone like you wouldn't chase a motive that would burn her life down, especially if it looked just like yours once did. You close your notebook. You don't write anything else, because now you're not solving the case. You're becoming part of it. The missing photograph returns. It's late. Too late for paperwork. Too early for sleep. You're back at your desk, surrounded by the scent of burned coffee and cheap disinfectant. The precinct hums its night rhythm, copy machines, buzzing lights, the low cough of a janitor who's seen too much and asks too little. The key still rides in your pocket, warm now from your body heat. The cassette tape you've hidden, not in your drawer, not in evidence. You slipped it behind a loose panel in the ceiling tiles above the squad room bathroom, just in case, because some things aren't meant to be found. Yet, you open Marcus Finch's file again. You've looked through it before, but now you're not looking for answers. You're looking for omissions. A quiet voice inside you, one you don't want to admit, is your own, says, "Start with the photos." So you do. Crime scene folder, photos in plastic sleeves, untouched. But then one catches your eye. You stop. It's familiar, too familiar, because it wasn't there yesterday. You're sure of it. It's a photo of Adrienne, but not the one from her apartment. This one's darker, older, shot from a distance, zoom grainy. She's standing in the school parking lot, smiling. But the man next to her, it isn't Marcus, and it isn't you. It's a third figure, face partially obscured, but the shape of the jaw, the posture, you recognize it, because you've seen that face before. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You check the back of the photo, no markings. You run it under the light, no timestamp, but in the corner, barely visible, someone's scrawled a single letter, K. Not a name, a threat, because K was your old case, the one no one talks about, the one you never closed, the one that got buried under a fresh coat of departmental redirection. The missing girl, the school teacher, the wrong suspect, and a detective who dropped it all when the media stopped asking questions. You run cold. Because the man next to Adrian in this new photo, he was your lead back then, and you let him go. Because the evidence didn't stick. Because the victim stopped cooperating. Because the story got complicated. It was never about the truth. It was about control. Now here he is again. Same man, different victim, different crime. And this time, he's not hiding. He's showing up in evidence. You rush down to archives, skip the security log. You pull the cold case box for K, a cardboard tomb of misfiled regrets. You flip through the reports, photos, timelines, and there it is. That same man, same jacket, same stance. Only now, the file calls him a background figure, non-relevant. And the person who labeled that was you. You close the file like it burned your hand, because now you know this wasn't Adrian's first brush with someone like Marcus, and Marcus wasn't working alone. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. Back at your desk, you get a text. Blocked number. Stop reopening ghosts. You stare. No one knows what you're doing, unless someone's watching. You pull the photo from the sleeve, hold it under the desk lamp. This isn't just evidence, it's a message. You call up the victim's digital files, cross-reference every image Adrian appears in. Nothing matches this one. It was planted recently. But why? To warn you, to push you, or to remind you that you've missed something before and you're about to miss it again. You check security footage for the evidence room. 12:34 a.m. Someone entered, not logged, not official, no badge swipe, just a blurry silhouette, same jacket, same jawline. You print a still of the footage, put it side by side with the photo, and finally, you whisper the name aloud. Caleb Rowe, the man who slipped through your fingers 5 years ago, the man whose file you buried, the man whose initials just showed up in a murder case you're being pushed to close, and the man who, somehow, still has access to the places you thought were secure. You don't sleep that night. Instead, you stare at the photo, the evidence files, the tape, and you ask yourself, what if the motive wasn't just buried? What if it was intentionally replaced? What if this whole case was designed to fold quietly so you'd never reopen the one that almost ruined you? You grab your coat because you're not chasing Adrian anymore. You're chasing your own ghost. He was in the room, but not in the report. You drive without thinking. No music, no chatter on the scanner, just the rhythm of windshield wipers across glass and the low groan of tires on wet asphalt. The city feels like it's holding its breath. And for once, you understand why. Because you are too. You don't go to Caleb Rowe's last known address. You go to where you remember him most vividly. The old school. The one from the case that vanished like smoke. It's abandoned now. Condemned. A relic from a time before liability was a word that made school boards sweat. But the back door, still unlocked, just like you remember. Because ghosts don't lock doors. They wait behind them. Inside, the air is thick with mold and nostalgia. Desks overturned. Graffiti curling up cinder block walls like vines with sharp teeth. You step over a rusted file cabinet. Your flashlight glints off something metallic near the floor. A coin? No. A tie clip. Engraved. CR. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You crouch, glove on, bag it, and just as you rise, your light catches the chalkboard. There's writing there, faint, dusty, wrong girl. 2 words, no context, no signature, just accusation. You step back because suddenly you remember something you shouldn't have forgotten. Back during the K case, a report came, an anonymous tip, said the suspect had been seen leaving the school after hours with a girl who didn't match the missing person description. You dismissed it. Wrong location, wrong day, and because you were tired. So tired of chasing dead ends. But maybe it wasn't a dead end. Maybe it was a warning. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. You pull out your phone, dial records, ask for the original interview tapes from the K case. You're told they were digitized 2 years ago, transferred to a cloud server. But when you try to access them, error 403, restricted, you're locked out of your own investigation. You call down to IT, ask for override credentials. They stall. Ask questions. You hang up. Because now it's obvious someone's been curating your memory, editing your past. And that someone knows Caleb Rowe is still out there, still moving through cracks you never knew existed. Back in your car, you stare at the tie clip. It's scratched, old, but the initials are unmistakable. And then your phone vibrates again. Another blocked text. He wasn't in the report for a reason. Let it go. You close your eyes, try to breathe, but the air in your lungs feels like borrowed time. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You rewrote. Not to headquarters, to the last person who might still remember Roe without blinking. Her name is Theresa Lang, the secretary from the school. Retired, quiet, lived alone in the same house for 27 years. She's the kind of woman who remembers things exactly as they happened, because no one ever asked her to lie. You knock on her door. She answers in a bathrobe with a pistol half hidden in her palm. Detective, ma'am, took you long enough? Inside, the house smells like cloves and old paperbacks. Photos line the shelves, most black and white, all creased with time. You show her the tie clip. Do you remember him? She doesn't answer right away, just nods slowly and says, I told your partner about him. Years ago, he said he'd take care of it. I didn't have a partner. No, you didn't. Your blood chills. Because you didn't. Not officially. But someone had access to your case files. Someone made calls, visited witnesses. In your name, Teresa digs through a drawer, pulls out a notebook, old, worn. Inside, scribbled in neat, meticulous handwriting is a list of dates, names, and at the bottom, see Row 914, 4:12 p.m., library hallway, not alone. That's the day the other girl disappeared. She says, what other girl? She doesn't answer, just points to a name, Erin Weller. You flip through the old records. Erin Weller wasn't a victim. She wasn't even listed, because she was the one who walked away, the one who wouldn't talk, the one who moved states and vanished from the narrative. You'd forgotten her, but the case hadn't, and neither had Caleb Rowe. You step outside into the cold night, and that's when you see it. A single photograph tucked under your windshield wiper. It's Adrienne, taken today, on the street, unaware. The angle from behind, like someone was following her. Again, you're not chasing a killer anymore. You're racing a shadow, one that's already rewritten your past, and now wants to decide your future. The case files are missing, but the dust isn't. You're back at the precinct, which 22 a.m., the kind of hour when guilt breathes louder than conscience, and shadows stretch longer than your patience. No one's here, just you, the hum of old wiring, and the quiet paranoia that something is always watching just out of frame. You head straight for archives. No greetings, no sign-ins, just the soft click of your badge, unlocking a truth no one wants unearthed. You go to the third shelf on the left, row C, box 74. That's where the physical files on Caleb Rowe should be. But when you pull it, dust, and behind the dust nothing. Not reassigned, not transferred, not even missing. Just gone, wiped like it never existed. But the dust remembers. You run your finger along the shelf. There's a clear square the shape of a box, recently moved. You kneel, flashlight beam flicking across the floor, and there it is, a footprint, half a tread, smudged in the powder of erased history. You photograph it, not because it's evidence, but because you don't trust your memory anymore. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. You go to internal logs, check the access records. No one signed into this wing in 72 hours, but you already know the signature you are looking for wouldn't appear in digital ink. You were warned. Twice. Let it go? You didn't? Now they've started taking things. But the question is, are they just cleaning up, or are they building something new from the rubble? You head to your locker. Hidden behind the falls back the cassette, the photo of Adrian with Roe, and now the tie clip, the unholy trinity. None of it is logged, none of it officially exists. But if someone's erasing truth, then you need your own file, one they can't touch. You zip it into a backup duffel, lock it in your trunk, and drive, because it's time to find Erin Weller, the wrong girl, the one who ran. You stop at a gas station. Old? Flickering. You ask the attendant about public records. He points to a terminal inside a rusted kiosk and says, "It might still dial out." You don't have time to debate tech. You log in, search Erin Weller, state unknown, then hit changed name, moved to Michigan. Name now, Erin K. Maddox, divorced. One child, works at a halfway house. Address Pine Creek Rehabilitation Center. You take a breath that doesn't help, because you know she didn't change her name out of convenience. She changed it to hide. It was never about the truth. It was about control. 6 hours later, you're on the road. Highways slicing through morning mist, like memory slicing through denial. Pine Creek sits on the edge of a town that looks like it quit trying after 1987. The kind of place where everyone knows each other and no one trusts you, especially when you flash a badge. Erin isn't at the front desk. You ask the nurse if she's working. She eyes you, then frowns. She left early, said she wasn't feeling well. Do you have an emergency contact? She doesn't give one, but she drives a red Civic, parked around back. You thank her, then head out and find the car. Still there, keys gone, but the driver's door is unlocked, and on the seat, a manila envelope. No name, just your badge number scrawled in sharp pencil. You open it. Inside, a photo of Caleb Rowe, surveillance style, a copy of the tie clip, scanned, and a note, handwritten. He was at my door last night. I told him I'd forgotten. He said he'd remind me. I lied. At the bottom, don't let her become the next me. You look around. No sign of her. No sign of struggle. But something prickles at your spine, because in the photo taken from across a diner, you see something in the reflection of the window behind Caleb Rowe. A man at a corner table, holding a camera, face obscured, but posture identical to the man from the school photo, the one with Adrienne. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You print the photo from your phone, overlay it with the others, and slowly the timeline warps. Adrienne wasn't just a witness. She wasn't just a suspect. She was bait. And now someone's using her again. Because the last time justice tried to catch Caleb Rowe, it didn't fail. It was stopped. And the person who stopped it might be closer than you think. Back in your car, you find one last item in the envelope. A broken wristwatch, stopped at 11:14. You flip it over, etched on the back, to Caleb. Keep time honest. D. You don't know who D is. Not yet. But something tells you that name will show up again. Soon. And when it does, the motive won't be hidden anymore. It'll be weaponized. The witness lied, but the silence didn't. The wristwatch ticks in your hand, only it doesn't tick. It's dead, frozen at 11:14, like the moment it died still matters. You hold it under the weak cabin light of your car, thumb brushing the engraving. To Caleb, keep time honest. D, you knew, but pretended you didn't. Because that name D has been buried for years. And if you dig deep enough, you'll remember that D used to send letters, unmarked, untraceable, to you, to the department, to victims' families. Letters that weren't pleas, they were puzzles. You start driving back to the city because you know where D was last tied to. And it wasn't a person, it was a place. The Miller Building, a condemned office complex shut down after a fire 5 years ago. Fire ruled accidental, but you were on that scene, and the smoke smelled more like lies than gasoline. That building shows up twice in old row files, unexplained visits, security logs never pulled. Back then, it didn't seem important. Now, now it's a ghost beacon. The Miller Building greets you like a bruised dull, ugly, and lingering. You cut the engine a block away, walk the rest. The boards over the entrance are loose. Someone's been inside recently. You push through, flashlights slicing the dark, dust, rot, broken glass. But under it all, something else. Order. A row of photos clipped along string wire like a sick gallery. Faces. Adrian, Erin, others you don't recognize. And at the end, your badge photo from your academy file, pinned to the wall with a rusted tack. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. You don't flinch. You take it down, flip it over. One word in red ink. Witness by. It wasn't meant to identify you. It was an accusation, a dare. Because you've watched things happen. You've chosen which stories to believe. You've sealed more cases than you solved. And now, someone's ready to unseal you. You search the room. Behind a crumbled desk, tucked under a loose tile, you find a box. Inside, a stack of cassette tapes, a small hand mirror, cracked, and a child's drawing, done in green crayon. 3 figures, a man, a woman, a child. The man is crossed out. The woman is smiling. The child, crying. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You play one of the tapes on your old pocket recorder. Static. Then he told me to smile, even when it hurt. He said the camera only saw the good things. He said no one would believe me anyway. The voice is young, female, not Adrian, not Erin, another victim, one who didn't testify, one who never got the chance. You scan the tape, nothing else, just pain, looped in analog. You pocket it, step back, and that's when the silence breaks. Footsteps, not yours, close, measured. You draw your weapon back into a shadowed alcove. Someone's in the building, but they're not running. They're watching. A figure passes the doorframe, black hoodie, gloved hands, no sound. You step out, low and silent. Turn around. They freeze. Then slowly, turn. But it's not who you expected. It's a teenager, female, maybe 16, holding a flashlight, and nothing else. Eyes wide but not surprised. You lower your gun, just slightly. Who are you? You're looking for him, aren't you? She says. Who the man in the photos? Caleb. Your breath stills. How do you know him? Because he found my sister last year. What's your name? Delia? D? Your stomach drops. You were expecting a partner. An accomplice, not a legacy. Delia takes out a folded notebook. Inside, pages of names, dates, coordinates, everyone tied to a missing girl. And next to each, a single word. Witness. You scan down. Adrian, Erin. Names you knew. Names you buried. Delia points to one at the bottom. She's next. Who you'll know when you see her. She turns. starts walking into the building's deeper dark. You follow, because this isn't a case anymore. It's a ledger, and someone's keeping score. The girl in the video was still alive. You follow Delia deeper into the bowels of the Miller building. Her flashlight cuts a shaky beam across walls warped by flame and water damage. But she moves like she's memorized every crack, every creak. You realize something unsettling. She's not afraid, and that means you should be. The hallway narrows, bending around an old boiler room door. She stops. "It's in here," she says. "What is proof?" You knew, but pretended you didn't. You brace yourself and push through. Inside a makeshift command post, wires, routers, a generator still humming softly, and in the center, a monitor flickering through static. One camera feed, grainy, unstable, but it's live. You step closer. A girl, maybe 17, tied to a chair in a dim, windowless room. She's breathing, blinking, alive, eyes darting toward the camera like she knows it's the only witness she has left. Who is she? Her name's Macy. Delia doesn't blink. He took her 3 nights ago. Why hasn't she been reported missing? Because her mother was paid not to, same as the others. By who Delia finally looks at you. By the man who taught you to close cases. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. You stare at the girl on the screen. She's gagged, one wrist free, trying slowly to loosen the rope around her ankle. You spot a small scar on her temple, then something else, something in the room's background. A wall clock, cracked, stopped at 11:14. Your spine stiffens, same as the watch, same as the last message. That's not coincidence. That's signature. You look to Delia. Where is this room? Not far. I followed him once. You what? He doesn't notice girls like me. I know how to disappear. She hands you a hand-drawn map, sketched in pencil, labeled with instinct. You pocket it. You shouldn't be here. Neither should she. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You leave her there, but not before giving her your burner number. If anything happens, I'll call. Not the police. Me. She nods, vanishing behind the same shadows that birthed her. Back in your car, you run a trace on the feed's IP address. You ping the bounce point, empty warehouse, south edge of town. You grab your duffel cassette, photo, tie clip, and now, the drive from the surveillance rig. You don't know what you'll walk into, but you know this much: Caleb isn't working alone anymore. The warehouse rises like a sleeping beast. Boarded windows, rusted beams, no guards, too confident. That's how they always screw up. You find the door already cracked. You draw your weapon, step inside. Dark, cool, quiet. Then a single overhead light flickers on. Center of the room. The girl, tied, weak but conscious. You rush forward and hear the sound that turns your blood to ice. A camera click, followed by, "Always knew you'd find her." You spin. Caleb Rose steps from the shadows like he never left them. Older, sharper, the same smile. That smile that says, "I've already won." He holds a phone in one hand, a scalpel in the other. You should have stayed retired. You should have stayed buried. You first. The girl stirs, mumbles through the gag. You edge closer. Caleb steps between you. You don't get to be the hero this time. I never was. You swing the flashlight, connect with his wrist. The scalpel clatters. The girl kicks her chair over. You tackle him, but he's stronger than he looks. Age hasn't slowed him. Rage has preserved him. You struggle. Fists, elbows, blood, But then your hand finds the tie clip in your coat. You jam it upward, sharp side out. He reels, falls, not dead, but dazed. You cuff him to the nearest pipe, gasping, laughing. You still don't get it, do you? Get what I wasn't the only one filming? You turn. The wall is lined with blinking red lights, cameras, live feeds from homes, classrooms, bedrooms, each one labeled, each one time stamped, each one 11:14. You don't breathe because that's not just a kill time, it's a ritual. And now you know the truth. Roe was never the whole monster. He was just the first crack, and someone else has been watching through the keyhole ever since. A dead man's voice answered the phone. You stand frozen. The monitors hum in unison, glowing eyes in the dark, tracking you, tracking her, tracking everything. The red recording dots blink like heartbeats, synced to some rhythm you don't want to understand. Roe is still laughing, not maniacally, not hysterically, softly, controlled, like someone who's already made peace with losing because he knows what's coming next. You pull your phone out to call it in, then you hesitate. The line rings once, twice, then connects. But the voice that answers doesn't belong to dispatch. It's his voice. Roe. You whip your head around, he hasn't moved. Still cuffed, still bleeding, still smiling. You're too late. The voice on the line says, you always were. You end the call. You knew but pretended you didn't. You checked the phone log. The call didn't go out. It came in. A blocked number. Timestamp 11:14. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. You drag the girl from the chair, cut her free. Her name spills out like a prayer. Macy, she can barely stand. You carry her out. No backup, no lights, just your heartbeat and her whisper. He said, I'd be you one day. What? He said they always turn the hero into the next suspect. She looks at you, bruised eyes wide. He said you'd understand, and damn it you do, because you saw the cameras, and now you're wondering which one has been watching you. You get her to the car, lock her in, safe. You go back for Roe, but when you enter the warehouse again, he's gone. The cuffs hang, empty, still locked, but the man vanished, and next to them, scratched into the concrete floor, I was never alone. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You don't return to the precinct. You go to Adrienne because you remember something now. The voice on the tape, the second voice. It wasn't just Caleb's. It was hers. She opens the door before you knock. No surprise. No panic. She just steps aside, lets you in. You sit at her kitchen table, pull the cassette out. She doesn't flinch. You knew I had it. I left it for you. Why? Because the moment you solved the case, you buried the truth. You stare at her. She sips tea like you're discussing weekend plans. You slide the tie clip across the table. Dee gave this to him. She nods. My father. You blink. The timeline reconfigures itself behind your eyes. Dee, Delia, Dad, disciplinarian. It fits too well. You were his first witness. I was his favorite project. Her voice doesn't crack. It calcifies. He said silence was loyalty. He said the tapes were his legacy. He taught me to smile through it. And you smiled when I interviewed you. I didn't lie. She says, I just didn't tell the parts you weren't ready to hear. You ask her if she's seen Roe. She looks toward the hallway. Not since I was 16. That's not true. She closes her eyes. No, she says, it's not. She reaches under the table, pulls out a box, hands it to you. Inside a second tie clip. A lock of hair. A flash drive. He left this the day before you arrested me. Why didn't you give it to me? Because I didn't know if you were with him. I'm not, aren't you? You don't answer. Because once upon a time, you did cover a thread. You did ignore a file. You did let the system swallow a question it didn't want to ask. And now the cost is in front of you. Adrian, Erin, Delia, Macy. You knew, but pretended you didn't. The flash drive hums in your laptop. It loads quickly. One folder, named Witness Protection. Inside, hundreds of video clips, surveillance, confessions, some edited, some raw. One shows a younger you testifying. Another shows a victim repeating your name. And one more shows Roe last night, talking to a woman in a hotel room. The woman, your captain, your. You shut the laptop, step back, because you've solved the case. But if you hand this in, they'll bury it again. And maybe this time, they'll bury you with it. She gave you the motive and the ultimatum. You don't sleep. You don't go home. You sit in your car, 2 blocks from Adrian's apartment. The flash drive still in your lap, like a burning truth no one asked for. You run your thumb across it, wondering how many lives fit into a single USB port. Your phone buzzes once. Unknown number. You answer. No voice, just the sound of a lighter flicking. Then, the tape wasn't the whole story. A pause, then a whisper that chills your spine. But the ending is yours to write. The line goes dead. You drive, not to the precinct, not to internal affairs. You drive to the waterfront, to the storage unit you haven't touched in years. Inside your off-the-books caseboard, photos, maps, pins, a conspiracy you once called paranoia. Now it looks like a blueprint. At the center of it all, a photo of Captain Reese, the woman who trained you, promoted you, and told you to close the Roe file before it unraveled the department. You tear it off the board and replace it with your own face, because the line between cover-up and survival, you crossed it a long time ago. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You head to her office. She's there, waiting, glass of scotch, smile like a blade. You found the drive. You left it for me. I needed to know which side you're on. You tossed the drive on her desk. I'm not on anyone's side anymore. Then you're already a threat. She taps the glass. This story's been going on longer than you think. Roe was our first mistake. You were the second. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. She slides a folder across the desk. You open it. Photos of you at crime scenes, off-record meetings, notes in the margins, unstable, emotional deviation, liability. What's this insurance? She leans in. You go public with the drive. We leak this. You disappear like the rest. You stare at the folder, stare at her, then say, "You think I care what happens to me. I think you care what happens to her." She turns her monitor. Live feed. Adrian, in her apartment, cooking, tracked, watched. You clench your fists, because the truth was never yours to hold. It was just bait. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You walk out with the flash drive. You sit in your car, start it, but you don't drive, because 2 blocks ahead, a girl waits by the crosswalk, Delia, holding a phone. When you pass her, she nods, just once, and you know she's already sent copies to reporters, to lawyers, to victims. You don't need to blow the whistle. She already did. You smile, just a little. Then your phone rings again, same unknown number. But this time, you don't answer, because the next step is yours, and the ending. It's not written in evidence, it's written in blood. The captain's car was already running. The city is quieter than usual. You sit parked 2 blocks from the precinct, watching the building like it's a crime scene because you're starting to believe it is. You check your mirrors. No tails, no movement, but you can't shake the feeling you've already been seen. Because Captain Reese doesn't make threats she won't follow through on. And the surveillance feed of Adrian was too smooth, too staged, like a magician's misdirection. What if Adrian wasn't the one in danger? What if it's you who's already been played? You knew, but pretended you didn't. You follow Reese's routine. She's predictable on purpose, always makes the same moves, always drinks the same scotch, always drives the same black SUV that never sets off internal alarms because it belongs to the top of the food chain. But tonight, her car is already running before she leaves the building. You spot it from a block away. Lights off, no driver inside, and yet the engine hums. You approach slowly, gun drawn, the doors unlocked. You ease it open. Empty driver's seat, but the passenger side, a manila envelope, duct taped to the dash. You peel it off, open it. Inside, a photo of you holding the flash drive, a printout of the call log from your burner, and a single post-it note. We write your ending now. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. You check the glove box, a phone inside, already unlocked, one screen open, video feed. Adrian again, only this time she's not cooking. She's tied to a chair. You see the same cracked wall from the Rowe abduction, same flickering light bulb, a message scrawled behind her. 2 witnesses, 1 bullet. You were never going to be allowed to walk away. This was never about justice. It was about options. And now they've given you one choose who gets out alive. You slam the glove box shut, check the trunk. Empty. But something's off. You step back just as the SUV speakers crackle to life. There is no truth, detective, only narrative. The voice is distorted, filtered, but you know it. Row, you trace the signal, ping the feed. It's bouncing off a secure precinct network from inside Reese's system, which means she's been part of it longer than even Row. And you were never the detective. You were the decoy. You gun the engine and drive. Destination, the last known signal from the feed, an abandoned observatory outside city limits. You hit 80 on the back roads, the past chasing you in the rear view, the truth flickering like headlights behind a fogged mirror. It was never about the truth. It was about control. The observatory looms like a dead god. Steel ribs, glass eye. You park under darkness and ascend the stone steps. Flashlight tucked in your belt. Pistol drawn. Inside, nothing but silence. Dust. And then music. A piano playing softly over static. You follow it to the central chamber. And there she is, Adrienne, unconscious, alive, behind her row, holding a remote, smiling like he's hosting an award show. Welcome to the final scene. This is over. It hasn't even begun. He clicks the remote. The lights rise. And behind you, Reese, gun aimed, expression unreadable. You should have stayed buried, she says. You first. You fire. Not at her. At the dome's lights. Glass shatters. Chaos. Adrian jolts awake. Rowe lunges. Reese screams. And you run into the dark. Because heroes die in the light. But survivors, they vanish into the shadows. The evidence was gone, but the guilt remained. The observatory burns behind you. Not flames, just light. Surveillance rigs short-circuiting. Glass panels collapsing like a house of cards caught in a breath of truth. You left Roe and Reese inside, not dead, not detained, but exposed. And exposure is worse, because people like them don't die in fire, they rise from it. You drive, nowhere in particular. Every turn feels like a confession. Your burner phone buzzes. One message, no name, just a location, the archive. You stop breathing for a second. The archive isn't a building, it's a myth, a whispered dumping ground for every unsolved, unfiled, and unwanted case in the department. Deep storage, off grid, off book. No badge has access to it, except yours because he gave you the code. Once, row, you arrive at 4 a.m. The city doesn't sleep, but it definitely forgets. And this place, this is where it stores those memories. The door is unmarked. The keypad flickers like it remembers you. You punch in the code, Mama Mulan To. Of course, the lock clicks. Inside rows upon rows of case boxes, reels, cassettes, flash drives, names scrawled in faded ink. Many you recognize, some you buried. You walk the aisles, find the one labeled Killer's Motive Redacted. It's been resealed, and the tape inside blank, just static, but not silent. A hiss, a whisper, then Rose's voice. We erase what we can't control. You eject the tape, snap it, and still, the guilt hums in your ears because you solved the case. And now you're part of its cover-up. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. You exit the archive with one file in hand, yours. Everything they ever documented about you, your failures, your breakthroughs, your hesitation. There's a photo paper-clipped inside. Adrian, taken from a distance. You check the back. Next time, we won't miss. No signature. Just that familiar timestamp again. 11:14. You take out your lighter. Burn the file page by page. The smoke curls like memories you never wanted but can't forget. Then, your phone buzzes again. Unknown number. You answer. She's gone. You freeze. Who, Delia? Your world tilts. How same warehouse? Different night. Why didn't she call me? Because she knew they were watching. Is she? No body, just blood. And this a ping? Your phone downloads an image, a glove, hers, laid neatly on a chair. Inside it, a note. He knows you changed the ending. It was never about the truth. It was about control. And now they know that you are rewriting the story, one page at a time. You drive back to your apartment. Adrian is there, safe, sleeping. You sit beside her on the floor, the morning light bleeding through the blinds like an interrogation lamp. You don't speak, because there's nothing left to confess. Only one truth left worth repeating. You solved the case, and then you buried the motive, because maybe, just maybe, the real killer never needed one. The tie clip didn't belong to him. Morning breaks like a warning flare, soft, almost apologetic. You haven't slept. Your shirt still smells like smoke and damp concrete. You sit on the floor of your apartment, watching Adrian sleep on the couch, as if the truth will leave her alone if she stays unconscious long enough. But the truth doesn't wait. It circles. It lingers. It unfolds when no one's ready. You check the table. The evidence you carried home is scattered like confessionals at a dead priest's wake. The flash drive, the burned photo, edges, the tie clip, that damn tie clip. You pick it up, polished, simple, monogrammed with a single, engraved letter R. You assumed it was Rose. Everyone did, but you never asked why he wore it. You were too focused on what was in his hand, never what had been put there. You grab a magnifier, and under the light, you see it. A second engraving, barely visible beneath the polished sheen, property of city prosecutor's office. You blink. That changes everything. The clip didn't belong to Roe. It belonged to the prosecutor on the original case, and the only person with access to her office that week, Captain Reese. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You checked the case notes again. The prosecutor from Roe's trial, Margot Keene, retired, vanished quietly. No farewell party, no commendation, no transfer, just gone. And now, her tie clip shows up in a sealed locker with a fabricated motive and a rigged confession. You do what you should have done weeks ago. You dig up the file, and there, buried on page 9, a photograph, Roe, Keene, and Reese, all three, smiling at a charity banquet. But the timestamp 11:14, everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. You step outside. Cold wind bites at your face like a warning. You don't tell Adrian where you're going. She's safer not knowing. You head to Keene's last listed address, a lake house 30 miles outside the city, half buried in fog and rumor. It's supposed to be abandoned, but the chimney smokes and the front porch creaks like it's been waiting just for you. You knock. The door opens before you can announce yourself, and there she is, Margot Keene, older, thinner, eyes like a ledger full of debts. Took you long enough, she says. You step inside. The place smells like mint tea and printer ink. There are papers on every surface, none newer than 10 years ago. Roe, you ask? He's not dead, she says. I know. He's not the villain either. You flinch. You fabricated motive. I neutralized threat. You buried evidence. I redirected justice. You cost lives. I saved systems. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You reach into your coat, pull out the tie clip, place it on the table. Her hands tremble slightly as she touches it. I gave that to him, she says, to wear, to warn him. He didn't listen. None of them do. You look around. The photos, the files, every name you ever chased, they're all here, catalogued, marked, not forgotten, just contained. This is where justice came to die. No, she says, this is where it learned how to survive. You pause, because she's not wrong, and that makes it worse. You ask her what happened to Delia. She lowers her head. She wasn't supposed to dig that deep, but she did. And now, she's with someone who protects the right kinds of secrets. That's not comforting. It's not supposed to be. You head back to the city. Drive slower this time. The tie clip burns in your pocket like a brand. You solved the case. You know who planted the motive, who edited the evidence, who gave you just enough rope to hang someone else, and who kept you too distracted to see it happening. But now you've got everything. The drive, the photo, the motive, the names, and the truth, which is the most dangerous thing of all, because once you know it, there's no going back. Her voice was on the tape, but it wasn't her. The city doesn't blink. It watches. You return to your apartment as the sun begins to fade, light peeling back from windows like a guilty conscience. Adrian isn't on the couch anymore. For a second, panic snaps in your chest, but then you hear the shower running. A moment of borrowed peace. You let it happen. You sift through your notes, photos, flash drives. The flash drive. You haven't listened to the new file. You've been too afraid. Not afraid of what's on it. Afraid you might recognize the voice and not be able to forget it. You plug it in. A single MP3 file, untitled. You press play. It starts with static, then breathing, then her. Adrian's voice, Soft, precise. He doesn't know yet, but he's close. You freeze. If he finds the tie clip, we shut it down. Give him the footage. Let him think it's over. We already have the scapegoat. All we need is his signature. You pause the recording. Rewind, replay. The cadence is hers. The breath pauses. Even the way she trails her S's, but it's not her. It's to her, like a perfect replica. Too perfect. You check the metadata on the file, created 3 days ago, modified today by a program called EchoRend, a voice cloning tool, AI-based, deep simulation. You feel sick. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Someone is manufacturing motive, and now they're manufacturing people. You try to remember everything Adrian has said to you in the past few days. Has she mentioned the row case? No. Has she mentioned the tie clip? No. Has she mentioned the name Margot Keane? Never. You open your encrypted recorder app and play back a snippet from your earlier conversation with her. You always come back hurt, she said, like you were chasing ghosts. No reference points, no embedded lies. She was either telling the truth or someone scripted her just well enough to pass. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. You walk to the bathroom door. Knock. Adrian. Yeah. Her voice replies. What did you make for dinner last night? A pause. Stir fry. You pause. She made grilled cheese. It was your recipe. You check the file directory again. Another file. Hidden. Named Shadow Copy E3.9. Encrypted, but not deeply. You crack it. Inside blueprints, facial scan overlays, vocal modelings, behavior maps, target name Adrian Kane, creator project Penumbra, funding source City Behavioral Initiative, location tag Nightshade Facility, sub 5. This isn't surveillance, this is replacement. And you've been sleeping next to it. You take a breath, grip your service weapon, step back to the bathroom door. Adrian, yeah, I'm going out for smokes. You don't smoke? Exactly. Thought I'd start. You leave, you don't run, but your heartbeat does. It was never about the truth, it was about control. You park 3 blocks away. Watch your own apartment window. The light flickers, then goes off. 10 seconds later, a figure exits the building. Adrian's silhouette. But her walk isn't hers. It's practiced. Like someone remembering how legs work. She glances around, looks straight at your car, smiles. Not the warm kind, the confirmation kind. She saw you, knew you'd be watching. She's been waiting for you to realize. You start the car and drive. Destination sub 5. You've heard the rumors. A black site beneath the city archive, where the too important to fail projects go to live and mutate. If Project Penumbra lives there, then so do the people behind everything. The voice, the motive, the verdict, the lie. And if you're not already dead, then you're something worse. Expected. The elevator didn't stop at any floor. You find the entrance to sub 5 exactly where Margot Keane said it would be hidden in plain sight. Beneath the foundation of an abandoned courthouse condemned 2 decades ago for structural instability. What a joke. The only thing unstable here is the line between evidence and narrative. You park in the alley. No cameras, no lights. Only a rusted freight elevator behind a chain-link gate. You force the gate open. The metal groans like it's remembering a different time. Inside the elevator, a steel panel with no floor buttons. Just one keyhole. No markings. You insert the skeleton key Margot gave you. It turns with a smooth, sick click. The floor shudders. And then descent. No floor lights. No passing levels, no up arrow, just down, For nearly 5 minutes, the elevator sinks. You feel the pressure build in your ears. Your gut curls, like it knows what's waiting beneath. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Finally, it stops. Not with a chime, with a thud like a verdict. The doors open to a narrow corridor. Walls painted the color of hospital denial. Stark, humming lights overhead. At the end of the hall, a steel door. No handle, just a retinal scanner. You step forward, half expecting resistance. But the scanner hums, flickers, then green light. It opens. They were expecting you. Inside a command center of sorts. Cold, white, buzzing with too many screens. You walk past empty desks, low humming terminals, server racks stacked like coffins. And there, at the center, Row, alive, unrestrained, typing. Took you long enough, he says, echoing Keen's words. This is what you were hiding. He doesn't answer right away. Just motions to a massive screen that flickers to life. Multiple video feeds, real time. You spot familiar faces, civilians, officers, even you. You on the phone, you driving, you reading this very flash drive. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. You weren't solving the case, Rower says. You were proving the tech worked. What tech? Narrative conditioning, trigger-based decision reformatting, voice manipulation. You stare. The perfect case, he continues. Constructed start to finish. You just had to believe it was real. That was the trial. You step forward. You let people die. They were written that way. This isn't a story, this is a crime. It's both. He gestures again. Another file opens. Project Penumbra Phase 3. Integration. Target. All active city personnel with moral threshold classification, A or above. Your name is at the top of the list. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You pull your weapon. Where's Adrian? Which one? The screen shifts. You see two feeds, two Adrians, one locked in a sterile room, another entering your apartment. Both alive, both identical, but only one real. Make your choice, Rose says. I'm done playing. Then walk out. We'll erase it all. You hesitate. That's the game, he says. Truth or oblivion. There's always a third option. You back toward the servers. Shoot the glass. The screens fracture. The system jolts. Red alarms flash. You'll kill the feed. Rowe shouts. That's the idea. You pull the second flash drive from your pocket. The real one. The one Margot didn't know you kept. You plug it in. It overrides the system. One word flashes on every screen. Rewrite it. You don't wait. You run. Down the hallway. Back into the elevator. It closes behind you and starts moving up. But the numbers still don't light. No floors. No confirmation you're even rising. Just the hum and your reflection in the elevator door. Eyes tired. Jaw clenched. Mind racing. You don't know if you're ascending or just being rewritten again. The notebook was in your hand, but you never wrote in it. The elevator releases you into silence. Not the comforting kind. The kind that hums like something just left the room or never really arrived. You're back on the street. Same cracked sidewalk. Same cold sky. But something feels off. Lighter. Falsely clean. Like the city's been scrubbed. As if your memory of it is more accurate than what's standing in front of you. You check your phone. All your messages gone. No call history. No GPS logs. Just one file in your notes app. A blank document. Titled, The Motive That Wasn't. Your fingers twitch. You didn't write that. Or maybe you did. But if so, Why don't you remember it? You knew, but pretended you didn't. Your pocket feels heavier. You reach in, pull out something you don't recall putting there. A leather-bound notebook, worn, water-stained. Yours, but it shouldn't be. You open it. Blank pages. Then one. Page 7. Only a single sentence. She dies if you stop. Written in your handwriting. And beneath that, a red fingerprint. Not yours. Too small. Too deliberate. You turn the page again. Another line. Delia's alive. But only as long as the story continues. You scan ahead. More phrases. Disjointed. Terrifying. Adrian. Control asset. V1.3. Beta. Reese died in '08. Roe was real. Until section 4. Your heart skips. You scan back to section 4. That's when the photograph surfaced. That's when motive shifted. That's when the tie clip was planted. That's when Roe's behavior turned. Mechanical. Synthetic. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. You rush home. Adrian is there again, on the couch, hair damp, like she just stepped out of a shower that ended 3 minutes ago. She looks at you, concerned, too natural. Where did you go? Do you remember giving me a notebook? What notebook? You watch her carefully. No flinch, too neutral. Do you remember our first case together? Of course. Who did we arrest? A pause. Only a fraction of a second. Mara Voss. Wrong. It was Jonas Klein. She doesn't know. She's not her. You back into the kitchen. Check the drawer under the sink. The emergency tracker. Still active. You press it. It sends a silent ping to the only person still off the grid. Delia. If she's alive, she'll come. If not, then no one will. You sit down at the table, lay out the notebook, the tie clip, the photograph, the flash drive. Adrian walks in. What are you doing? Writing the ending. To what everything? You're scaring me. Good. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You scribble into the notebook notes, details, questions. Then you write, I am the unreliable narrator, and it fits. You don't know how long you've been a pawn, or when the story stopped being real. You just know the notebook is filling itself now, words appearing before your pen touches the page. You flip to the final entry to stop the lie, erase the witness, a knock at the door. You open it. Delia, alive, wounded, shaking. They know, she whispers. They were never hiding the truth. They were feeding it to us. You let her in, locked the door, and for the first time, burned the notebook, page by page. Smoke curls upward, a symbol of suspense no one controls anymore. And when it's ash, you both sit in silence, because maybe the only real ending is not knowing who's writing the next chapter. The court transcript had no judge's name. Delia doesn't speak much. She sips tea from a chipped mug, watching the ash swirl in the sink. You sit across from her, hands trembling slightly from the adrenaline that never fully wears off anymore. The notebook's gone, but the implications, they are tattooed behind your eyes. She slides a folded document across the table. No envelope, no introduction, just the cold edge of inevitability. A court transcript, sealed, marked internal, do not circulate. You open it. It's from Roe's trial. You scan quickly dates, witness statements, procedural jargon. But something hits wrong. There's no judge listed, no presiding officer, not even a court number. Just statements from the prosecution, from the defense, from witnesses you now know never existed. Delia leans in. I pulled it from the backup archive before it was wiped. You whisper, half to yourself. Why remove the judge's name? Because there wasn't one. What do you mean? Rose's trial never happened? You knew, but pretended you didn't. You flipped the document. The transcript's final page is a carbon copy, layers of ink, ghosting over one another. Nonsensical, like it's been altered again and again. The verdict, guilty motive confirmed. But you can see beneath it, faintly case dismissed, insufficient motive. A contradiction layered like lies. Delia pulls another paper from her coat. It's a receipt from the courthouse printer, time-stamped the day after the supposed trial, printed by EchoRend Systems, clerk Login M. Keene. They didn't just fake the verdict, Delia says. They overwrote it. You slump back. Everything, the body, the confession, the tie clip. The footage was reverse engineered to fit a verdict they needed, because the motive never existed. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. What about Adrian, you ask? Delia hesitates. There were 3 listed in the program logs: versions, simulations, voice printed and visually stabilized. But why her? Because she was closest to you. A beat, because you trust her. You think about last night, the 2 perfect answers, the error in memory, the deep calm behind the eyes that used to burn with fire. So what now? Delia unrolls a blueprint. Penumbra, sub 7, another site, lower, older, where the original simulations were developed, where they say the voice project began. If we shut down the source model, she says, everything above collapses, like pulling the spine from the body. Exactly. But Delia warns you, it's not just a server room. It's a courtroom, not built for trials, built for renderings, where motives are written, redacted, and redeclared like stories on a whiteboard. The judge you never saw. She's down there. You stare. Margot, no, she says. The real architect. You ask the question without realizing you're saying it out loud. Is this still my case? Delia looks at you. Not as a partner, not as a friend, but as someone trying to believe you're still real. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You pack quickly. No weapon this time. Only the burnt remnants of the notebook in a Ziploc bag. The fingerprint, the tie clip, the real flash drive. You leave Adriana sleeping, or whatever she is now. You don't say goodbye, because goodbye assumes someone remembers what came before. You and Delia drive in silence to the edge of the city, where the air turns cold and the buildings vanish, where justice doesn't walk, it waits. And as the last cell signal dies, you see the words carved into the bunker door ahead. Truth is an act of fiction, and below it, sprayed in black ink, the verdict was a draft. There was a witness, but no one remembered them. The entrance to sub 7 yawns open like a mouth that forgot how to scream. A sensor scans you both as you step through, but it doesn't ask for ID. That's what unnerves you most. It doesn't need to. It already knows you're here. And why? The corridor descends at an unnatural angle. The walls pulse slightly, as if there's breathing. Fluorescent lights hum overhead, not in a rhythm, but in discordant pulses, like a Morse code you're not fluent enough to decipher. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You and Delia move in silence. The deeper you go, the more time distorts. You don't know how long it's been. 5 minutes, an hour. At last, you reach a sealed chamber with a transparent wall. Inside a chair, a woman, tethered, not chained. She isn't Adrienne. She isn't Margot. She's no one you've ever seen. But something clicks. You almost remember her, like a dream you woke up from halfway through. Delia wipes the fog from the glass. That's the witness, she whispers. The original one. From Roe's case. From before the Roe case. She taps the nameplate etched into the glass. Subject: Elise Ward. You freeze. She was in the first file I ever opened. You murmur. But then she disappeared. No interview, no statements, no record. Delia nods, because she never existed in the system. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. You stare at Elise. She stares back, unblinking, eyes hollow, but aware. And then she mouths something. 3 words. Don't trust stories. Delia reaches for the door panel. It's manual. The metal creaks as she opens it. Elise doesn't move. You step inside. Sit across from her. Who are you? Her voice is dry, ghosted over with disuse. I was the first to testify. Against who? Against the writers. You blink? What do you mean? There were never criminals, just scripts. Delia joins you inside, quietly closing the door. How long have you been here, you ask. Elise smiles, faintly. Since before you started investigating. You ask what she means, but she cuts you off. You're not here to solve the case. You're here to decide if it deserves to exist. You recoil. You think I'm part of this store. I think you're the last page. It was never about the truth. It was about control. The lights flicker. Alarms don't blare. But the silence changes pitch like a room holding its breath. You look to Delia. We have to get her out. Delia doesn't argue, but she doesn't move. We unplug her, she says, and the system goes dark. Is that a bad thing? Delia stares at the wall of screens behind Elise's chamber. Each one shows a case file, a face, a motive, a verdict. Every one of them gets fading in and out like hallucinations. We lose them all. Delia murmurs. Truth, lies, everything. So what's the alternative? Delia presses her hand against the glass. We let the story keep going. Elise speaks again. You already made your choice when you started asking questions. You step forward. Place your palm against Elise's. She nods. The monitors die, one by one. Not in alarm, but in acceptance. You walk out together. Elise limping. Delia quiet. You hollow. As you leave, the walls don't scream. They sigh, like something finally finished writing. And for the first time, you wonder, not whether justice exists, but whether you do. You read the ending before you reached it. The sky outside is gray, smudged like charcoal over parchment. Elise rides silently in the back seat as you drive with one hand, the other gripping the final flash drive like it's a lifeline or a live wire. Delia watches the horizon as if it might bite back. Where do we go now? She asks. You don't answer right away, because the answer is simple, but impossible. Back to the beginning. You knew, but pretended you didn't. The old archives are housed inside a forgotten wing of the Central Library, one sealed since the flood that never made the news. You park on a diagonal curb, beneath a broken security light that flickers like it's winking at you. Inside, the basement doors groan. You descend past mold-blackened steps, dragging the air with you like a heavy coat. The final room is dry, untouched, exactly as you left it on your first day as lead investigator. You didn't realize until now the smell, the chill, the missing chair. They weren't irregularities. They were deliberate omissions, stagecraft. You find the microfilm projector in the back, right where you remember not remembering it. You load the last flash drive into the adapter port and project it onto the far wall. Black screen. One line of text. Welcome back, detective. Then another. You've reached the epilogue. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. A document fades in, typed, stark, labeled, final motive statement, detective, redacted. It's your own voice speaking now, emerging from a hidden speaker. The recording plays like a confession. The truth was never buried. It was scripted, over and over, until even I believed it. I solved the case. I found the killer. But then I saw what they buried deeper. Not a body, not a weapon, a reason. Delia stares at you. Elise does not blink. You wrote this, Delia whispers. You shake your head. I think I was told to. The next image appears a single page from a book you never authored. Chapter 1. He solved the case, then hid the killer's motive. You step back, realize the truth isn't a conclusion, it's a trigger, a choice. It was never about the truth, it was about control. Elise steps forward and places a hand on the projector. The reel burns, not dramatically, just enough. The last line flickers. You are both the detective and the lie. She turns to you. Now you decide which one survives. The basement shakes slightly, something overhead. Sirens, machinery. Or maybe it's just the story reacting to being undone. You grab the microfilm, the projector, the documents, everything you can carry. As you run upstairs, the lights behind you snap off, one by one. Not failure, erasure. The system no longer recognizes you. You are off script. You are unrendered. And that means for the first time free. You reach the street. The city hasn't changed. But you see it now for what it is. A page. And you're walking across the margins. You solved the case. You found the lie. Now you have to decide whether to bury it or let it write itself again. You erased the truth so no one could rewrite it. The storm hits as you reach the old broadcast tower, abandoned, offline, surrounded by rusted fencing and vines. But it still holds one thing the rest of the city no longer does. A signal no one's monitoring. You lead Delia and Elise up the stairwell, the wind lashing at the broken windows. You can see the entire city from here, all the fabricated streets, all the stories people walk through thinking they're real. But you know better now. You know they're just sequels. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Elise plugs the drive into the tower's control panel. She doesn't ask for permission. She doesn't need to. Delia watches you like she's waiting for a reason to stop. If we send this, she says, we unravel everything. Cases will be reopened. Names will be exposed. Identities destroyed. You nod. Good. And if we don't, we stay characters. Delia exhales. No arguments, no heroics. Just the mutual realization that truth was always a dirty story. The file uploads in silence. Lines of code flood the screen. Names, locations, confessions, all the things that were never supposed to see daylight. You feel the weight of it, not like guilt, like release. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. The tower lights blink green. Transmission complete. Elise speaks without turning around. They'll come for us. Let them. You grab the last hard copy, your notes, your sketches, your red string theories, and feed them to the fire bin. Because if they want a sequel, they'll have to write it without you. You descend the stairs into the rain, and for once, you don't hear footsteps behind you. It was never about the truth, it was about control. But not anymore. As the first headlines ripple across the city's encrypted nets, as sealed cases begin to open, and AI-flagged confessions vanish from sanitized records, a quiet reformation begins, not televised, not witnessed, just started. And somewhere, a new detective stares into a new file, one that ends not with a period, but with an ellipsis, because the system wasn't broken. It was too perfect. And perfection is just another word for control. You walk until you can't tell where the rain ends and you begin. And then, quietly, you disappear. Because the best endings are the ones that never feel finished. The rain has softened now, no longer slicing, just settling. The kind of rain that hushes everything around it. The streetlights flicker but hold steady, casting long shadows on pavement that remembers every footprint you made. Somewhere out there, someone will pick up your trail, but it won't be easy because you didn't leave a breadcrumb path. You left questions, and that's what scares them the most. Maybe Adrian was never real. Maybe the trial never happened. Maybe you've been writing this story from the inside out, all along. But here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. Control doesn't die, it just changes its voice. Tonight, you took that voice away, and now the silence is louder than any verdict. You breathe in, and for the first time, it doesn't feel like you're inhaling someone else's lie. It's quiet, still, but you're not alone. Delia's footsteps echo behind you. Elise's faint silhouette crosses an alley, and the city keeps whispering, because it doesn't know what to do without a narrator, and maybe that's freedom. So if this story found you, maybe it's because you're part of the next one, or maybe, just maybe, you've always been the one holding the pen, and the shadows, they're just waiting for you to start writing again. End of script. Sleep well and watch your back.